Hello everyone and welcome to Motorcast. Today is of course, if you've read the title, the review of the recent, not WTCC, BTCC, of course it is, round at Thruxton, the absolute cathedral of speed in touring cars. And today joining me is of course Matt212.
Hello.
Yes, hello. I'll start off today just saying how, an apology for missing the round at Donington. Unfortunately, just a few schedule clashes for the both of us, not really able to find the time to record the episode. So we kind of agreed on just doing a little thing at the start of this podcast, just a little quick review of the Donington race weekend. So, of course, at Donington, we did originally have Ash Sutton on pole, but of course his Subaru got disqualified, which left Rob Austin on pole. I think he finished for the fifth in the first race, so yeah, running significantly less ballast than what he was in the first race. And in race 3, we had the man himself, Colin Turkington, winning the race for BMW. Of course, that was the weekend, which was kind of remembered for the wrong reasons. Unfortunately, it was the weekend when Billy Munger did have his crash. And of course, everyone at Motorcast is wishing Billy all the best. So we should hopefully we can see him back in a racing car. He certainly seems determined to do so. So all the best from us here at Motorcast. Go on to the main event though now, which is of course Thruxton. And Matt, overall, how did you think the weekend was in terms of entertainment?
Obviously, Thruxton won. I personally, I'm obviously a big fan of sort of like the high speed circuits, and obviously I think Thruxton, overall, it was still a very good event. Obviously, as we all know, in the later races, we did see that red flag, which sort of like slowed down proceedings a lot. But overall, I think, it was fair to say it was sort of a good sort of 8 out of 10 rating I give it on the whole.
Well, Thruxton usually is quite an exciting race weekend because of the high speeds, of course. Dunlop, I don't think they brought the option tyre with them. I'm not entirely sure. They usually don't bring one to Thruxton just because of the high tyre wear. And because of the high tyre wear, it usually does suit the BMWs. However, we did not have the BMWs dominating like I assumed we would. Of course, we did have... we had Matt Neal winning the first race. And clearly the Hondas did seem to have the pace, didn't they, Matt?
Yeah, I think it was fair to say. I think a lot of people were either thinking that the BMWs would come in and dominate, or really I think it was either the BMWs or the Hondas. Obviously the Hondas being front wheel drive, it did seem to pay off for them on the day. Obviously having those harder tyres as well meant that the BMWs really couldn't capitalise on their rear wheel drives. But yeah, I think the first race Hondas, as you could just see with the podium, obviously completely full of Hondas. No massive surprises there in my opinion.
Well, I think the only surprise would be that BMW didn't capitalise on, of course, the track which features heavily on tyre wear. In fact, the top finishing rear-wheel drive car was Ash Sutton in his Subaru Le Vogue. Other players in the top 10, of course, we had Tom Ingram, who is our current championship leader now, after quite a strong weekend of. I think all of his races he finished in the top 4. Didn't win a race though. But of course, it was the second race which was a little bit chaotic. We had 2 sets of red flags and ended up having only 6 laps, and Rob Collard winning the race. Although could you arguably say that was just down to his restarts and the BMW's power off the line?
I think definitely, obviously with a 6-lap race, not really a huge amount can happen. Obviously, those BMWs, that still was quite clearly the only advantage they had. So obviously to get into the lead, obviously off the restart there, I would say definitely won him that race overall in the end.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. The race just not able to be long enough to, bring the Hondas or perhaps even the Toyotas into play. Because, of course, over the weekend the Toyotas did look as if they had decent pace considering they were running so much ballast. So do you think, looking over the weekend, Matt, that the Toyotas, they look like the car to beat this season, would you say? Or do you think Honda or BMW are on equal or better terms than the Toyota Ventuses?
I think overall you can't argue that. I do feel that the BMWs and the Hondas are probably quicker, but with just how consistent so far Tom Ingram's been, it seems that it's almost like in Formula 1 back where we had Fernando Alonso in Ferrari in 2012. he was never he was never had the quickest car. It always came across, but he was just so consistent with it that's really, I think, what's going to put Tom in a very, very strong position come the end of the season.
I think it's also going to leave Rob Austin in a very strong position. Of course, Rob's been running Audis for a long time now, and this is his first season, I think, in the BTCC where he's running a front-wheel drive car. So he seems to have adapted quite well, doesn't he?
Definitely, it's been. Rob, obviously, I think, is one of those drivers where he either really performs well, and I wasn't too sure what to expect. Obviously, it's a quite a big change moving from the front-wheel drive to the rear-wheel drives, and obviously vice versa. And I think Rob, so far, although Tom Ingram, I think, probably is one of the favourites if, obviously, a Toyota is going to win race. I think Rob Austin, Tom Ingram's going to have to be looking over his shoulder throughout the rest of the season and make sure he keeps one eye on Rob Austin and one eye on the guys ahead of him.
Yeah, I totally agree there. Of course, Tom Ingram is running a brand new car, and Rob Austin, I think, is running a year-old car. So, but of course, the differences in the BTCC are fine, if any. Of course, race 2, as we mentioned, the red flags. We obviously had the incident between the MGs, and we also had a crash for who was it again? Was it Belcher? It was one of the shredded wheat focuses. Obviously, the state of Dan Lloyd's car afterwards was, it seemed to have lost most of its front end. Rightful choice to bring out the red flags, do you think? Or do you agree?
It had to be, really. You can't, obviously in BTCC, they can be a little bit more lenient with where they can leave the cars, but something like that where you could see another incident happen, that you had to bring out a red flag for that. And also, obviously, you can't leave the barrier in that sort of mess, because obviously, as we saw, people do crash off there. It's not the first time you've ever seen someone have an off there, so it had to be done, unfortunately.
I think with the speeds as well, especially around this track, they tend not to take chances when it comes to rebuilding barriers or leaving cars in dangerous places. So you can't blame them. They can't blame them at all for red flagging the session. Does mean a little bit less action for the fans, but I think driver safety is of course a big talking point at the moment, and I think it's fair enough that they put that firmly as the number one priority, as they should at all times. Now with Rob Collard's victory, it meant that BMW were lined up nicely to hit the big ton in terms of BTCC race wins. So it seemed like the perfect point, or the perfect position for a BMW win for the last race, and that's of course what happened with Colin Turkington this year, seemingly the master of race 3s, taking another race 3 win, and he's starting to creep up the championship now after a bit of a slow start. Obviously the crash at Brands gave him a bit of a stuttering start to his season, but would you say Colin Turkington's still in for the championship, Matt?
I personally, after obviously the performances he's had, I would still put him as my favourite, either him or Tom Ingram, to be the favourites to win the title this season. I think we've got Colin, who was probably quicker on outright pace, but Tom, obviously, as I've said before, so consistent so far. I would not be surprised if going into the final round of the season, those two were the only two drivers fighting for the title.
See, I would add Shedden in there, just because you can never discount Shedden when it comes to the BTCC, and even Matt Neal, who himself actually broke a record and moved on to 60 wins. I think overtook Andy, or was level on wins with Andy Rouse. So another milestone there for Matt Neal, whose career in the BTCC has spanned a fair few years now, and just he keeps on achieving those top results. And I would like to see him go for another championship. I think everyone else would. We all love the kind of we all like the rivalries between Matt Neal and Jason Plato. And talking about Jason Plato, nowhere to be seen at all in Thruxton.
Once again, yeah. It's just doesn't seem to be his season so far. He's clear, obviously he's struggling in that Subaru. I think really all the drivers are struggling in that Subaru, bar Ash Sutton. He's been once again another big surprise for me this season, because obviously you hear the name Jason Plato, and really, Ash Sutton has, in fairness, wiped the floor with him overall. I don't know what's going wrong with Jason, but it just does not seem to be a year where we're going to see anything. I would be surprised if we saw one shot good result from him, but I think even sort of a podium with the way this season's gone so far would be quite amazing for him.
Well, I think somehow Subaru have managed to lose pace over the winter, because they were winning races and managed to bring themselves back into the championship hunt, during the second half of last season. So, if considering Sutton's the only person who seems to be performing that car to its full potential, or, he could even be overperforming it, because Jason Plato is absolutely no slouch. I think it's just a case of he needs some good luck. He's well overdue some. He's had a shocking start of the season. So, I think we need to see Jason Plato back up here. Certainly, championship challenge is far from over. We saw that last year with the Subarus. They picked up pace incredible amounts over the second half of the season, despite being one of the slowest cars in the first half. So they could do it again, but arguably, if they have lost pace over the winter, does that say a lot about the Subaru team themselves, that maybe they weren't prepared enough for this season?
It seems almost just a huge underestimation about how quick all the other cars would be. I think, there was a statistic that all the other teams near enough had gone quicker this year, and Subaru were about half a second slower. And obviously, you can't really afford to lose that sort of time in the BTCC. If I can get the right words out, you can't afford to lose that sort of time. It's so tightly knit between everyone, and obviously everyone's so tightly bunched up all across the whole season. For a team like that, I think obviously, as you said, we could see them bring back a lot of pace after the summer break, but it's been very, very underwhelming for them, especially apart from obviously Ash Sutton. It's just been a huge shock, obviously a turnaround of events for that team.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them though, because they've got a good selection of drivers. It could just be something as simple as a wrong turn in setup development. So it could be an easy fix, but with motorsport, nothing is ever as easy as you first think. But they should get back into things. They're of course got the cars are ran by BMR, who are of course past teams champions, I think, back when they ran the Passat CCs. So I think they've got a strong enough team behind them to bring them back into things. Few honourable mentions. I think we should go with Jack Goff with the first one, with a third place in race 1 and the third place in race 2 with Eurotech, and he's starting to get into the swing of things now. Not losing positions off the start was one of the things he mentioned. That was a big thing for Thruxton. So do you think this is going to improve his confidence from here on now?
I think definitely, obviously, as you can see in race 3, he was obviously the highest Honda finisher. And I think, obviously things like that are always going to boost confidence, especially if you're quicker than Gordon Shedden on the high, that's always definitely going to be a confidence boost there. But yeah, definitely, it seems that obviously I'd like to see, him. I think he obviously want to be focusing on just being consistent, getting in the podiums where he can, and just trying to iron out just small mistakes.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there. Another honourable mention is Matt Jackson, who at least in race 1 had a decent go. The Focuses again look to have lost pace over the winter along with the Subaru, so good to see him finally getting in the top 10, be it only in one race. And then we've got the 2 Mercedes, which had a decent run with Aidan Moffat getting another 2 top 10 finishes with 9th in race 2 and 8th in race 3. And of course, Adam Morgan, who's always there or thereabouts, with a 5th in race 1, 7th in race 2 and in 9th in race 3. So a pretty solid weekend from the Mercedes guys. One last thing I just want to talk on is Andrew Jordan, who again didn't have a straightforward weekend. He has won in the BMW, but he apparently still needs a little bit of getting used to the car. Would you agree with that?
I think, it's only fair, that these guys obviously aren't going to be able to adapt to the BMW very quickly. But, still, I think all 3 of their drivers now have won a race this season. Obviously, that's very, very good for them. Obviously, only 9 races in to obviously have won a third of the races so far. Obviously, very useful for them. But I think, as you could just see by race 3, obviously way back from both Rob Collard and Colin Turkerton there, obviously 2, let's be fair, not exactly low-end drivers on the field. They're not exactly 2 drivers you could easily just beat. But I think he probably is still the one out of obviously all 3 of them that is still struggling with the car the most.
Well, it is of course his first season in the BTCC running a rear-wheel drive car, and as you said, he's running against arguably the two best rear-wheel drive BTC drivers on the current grid. So yeah, he has got quite a battle to even get on terms with those two guys. But he is of course a former champion, so I wouldn't put it past him to get used to the cars. I think that's about it. So I'd like to thank Matt for joining me on this podcast. Again, I'd just like to apologise for missing the last race, and we'll hopefully not miss any more in the future. Obviously, the next race is at Alton Park, the track closest to me at the moment, so I might get myself down there depending on what my schedule looks like. Let's go a little bit of a prediction. I'll only do race 1 though, because with the BTCC, the rest of the races can be, anyone can win. So, Matt, I want your race 1 winner and I guess pole position as well.
I'm going to have to be very, very boring, and I'm going to have to go Colin Turkington for both, in all seriousness. I know a lot of people probably won't be too happy with that, but I think it's just, so far this season, probably the safe bet and one that I think probably will do very, very well.
I think I'm going to go with Rob Collard. But again, we're both going BMW here. But of course, BTCC is a very difficult thing to predict at the best of times, so frankly, it could even be Jeff Smith on pole, as we've already seen. So yeah, that's it from us. Thank you guys for watching. Of course, you can follow Motorcast on Twitter at Motorcast_. You can subscribe to us here on YouTube. And of course, all of the Motorcast links are in the description below. So, we'll see you at the next race at Alton Park. We'll see you then.